Hello and welcome, Inspired Podcast community. This is your new episode. My name is Caroline, and my today's guest is Julia Hart. And I'm so happy to meet you today for our interview. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much. And thank you for the invitation. I was quite honored.
Oh, thank you so much. And I love meeting inspiring people. Of course, I would love to introduce you to the audience a little bit. And I learned that you are a book author and your book name is The Jewels of January. I love that so much. And I would like to hear more about that and what you can tell us. Your statement, you gave me a statement, is readers are cool. And I can emphasize this because I love reading as well. What I do is book study, Think and Grow
Oh,
Rich by Napoleon Hill. And so tell
oh,
us more
right.
about you and what inspired you to become an author.
It's really quite an interesting. I never aspired to become really an anything, and like I'm just kind of one of those people. I don't know if it's because I'm a Pisces or because of the way that I grew up, but I don't have a very strong. I wouldn't consider myself a very driven person. When I wake up in the morning, I think of the thousands of things I have to do in a day. I just want to go back to sleep. It gets overwhelming for me. So I just kind of, in my own little non religious way, just give all of that stuff to God. I really believe in many ways that what's going to happen is going to happen is going to happen. And yes, I definitely put some intention onto getting things done, but I never, ever, ever dreamed I would be a writer. A lot of the reason because I was very dyslexic growing up. School was extremely difficult for me. I wasn't an academic by any stretch. I was definitely a social butterfly. I That was kind of what I leaned towards because personality wise, I felt like I had a lot more cards in my deck than as somebody who knew, numbers and words and letters. And I wasn't very smart as a kid when it came to book stuff, but people stuff I kind of understood better. um I also had a lot of neurodivergent issues that we didn't know, right? When you and I were growing up, we didn't know what any of that stuff was. So it was just, you were either smart or you were dumb. And I was definitely more in the dumb category. So the thought of doing something that I would consider intellectual would just be stuff that I just, whatever, that's for somebody else. I'll just do the fun stuff. But as it turns out, the way the universe or God works is often so miraculous, and I think we just don't realize it sometimes. But being that COVID is really what made me do it. I was in the crux of COVID, and I was very scared, especially when it first started coming out and everybody was passing away, and I was just waiting for my turn, right, to die. And I couldn't watch the news. I was very triggered. My plate was already full and tipping, on the anxiety side. So I just kind of barricaded myself in my own little world. And books were a big part of that. And I didn't want to read anything, Nostradamus-ish or, even historical fiction has a tendency to be wrapped around something that was kind of intense, like a war or things like that. So I kind of bounced into like light romance, more of like comedy, romantic comedy books. And as I was listening to these books, I noticed that there was a pattern to them. Like, will they get together? I think they will. Oh no, they're not going to. Oh my gosh. They're going to make it. And then the dark days of the soul, they have broken up, nothing's. And I realized doing that I had a journey myself that kind of fit that pattern, that was kind of unique, and that I had grown up and left home, as Americans do. I don't think this is the tendency now, but at least, back when I had graduated from high school in the 80s, middle 80s, you grew up and you got out of the house. It was just a foregone conclusion. You're either going to go to college or you're going to get an apartment, but you're going to get the hell out. And so I did that, and I made enough bungles in my attempt to do that I ended up severely, like, I had probably the closest thing to like an absolute nervous breakdown that I could have had. I was riddled with anxiety. I was passing out everywhere. I couldn't get a job. I was living on cigarettes and Dr. Pepper. I know, I was 19. I didn't really know what I was doing. And I ended up in a cult but I did not know it. I don't think a lot of people go, "Oh, you're a cult. I'll join." That sounds fabulous. But obviously, the man, and I call him Frank in my book, he kind of knew what he was doing, and he, looked at me and other people that had come and said, "You're quite broken. I bet I could figure out what's breaking you and make you feel better about that, and then use that every time I want to control you." you know and so that was the case. I felt for the first time in my life like somebody saw me, they understood me, they helped me. I never had an anxiety attack when I was with Frank in the cult. No, never. When I was with that group of people, I felt amazing. um until I didn't, until then it started getting more intense, more, well, more money. We need the money, go make more money. And at one point Frank was like, "Look, you girls are young." We were all between probably 20 and 25 years old. He's like, "I bet you'd make more money becoming exotic dancers, strippers, than you would cleaning houses." And so one by one we kind of went in. um and we did. We made, between probably two and $800 a night, depending on the night, the whatever, right? Uh, but in that, while I was there, and I did enjoy it. I was young. I mean, this was like the first time that I had felt young since I had joined the group, because we weren't really allowed to dance the way we wanted to and eat the foods we wanted to and listen to the music. And suddenly I'm like in this environment where even though I'm with eight or nine of my other group friends, because we're all there together, I still, I'm being able to do some of the things that Frank would be like, "No, no, not in our group environment, but out in the club where you need to make money. Just don't forget yourself. Don't forget who you are, but go play the game." I met a guy, clearly. I mean, obviously, I met a lot of guys, but for some reason, this particular young man saw more of me than just the facade. And I think he wanted to get to know me. And he had also heard that I was one of the cult girls. I didn't even know people were calling us this, because I didn't think of myself. I was just a young girl on a new age journey to help heal herself so she could help other people. This was
Mm.
my journey. But he really took an interest in me and wanted to help me. And so that's what the book is about. It is about uh, this young girl figuring out that she's in a situation which is actually quite detrimental. But I had been brainwashed to the thinking that I didn't need much sleep, that thinking, certain thoughts were keeping me safe from things. All the things, that all the ways that individual cult leaders will kind of indoctrinate you. And so it took a while for me to go, huh, I might be in a cult. And now that I know that I am, do I have the strength to get out? Because all of the indoctrination that had to do with me specifically had to do with my anxiety attacks. If you leave, this is going to come back. You're better here, not out there. All these little things that, it's not like Frank sat down with the light above me and started telling me, bad things so that I would stay with him. But it's just in ways, little things would happen. He'd be like, "See, you're not quite ready yet. You're still working on that anxiety, but here I think you can get the help." It's just the things, right? So I have a copy of my book because there's no reason not to tell people. So the Jewels of January, Jules is obviously me. January is her stripper name. So it's actually the girl behind the dancer. And I also often reflect in the book, kind of in the background, about not judging people for what they do for a living, because you never know what they do. And it was also very important to me that James did not save me. I
Mm.
had to save myself. I had to build that bridge of my own happiness and my own control over my emotions, and learning how to deal with my anxiety, learning how I was getting triggered. All of those things I had to kind of learn how to manage before I could take that step. It wasn't like even if somebody had pulled me out, I would have had probably another nervous breakdown. So that's the whole thing, the story, and what the book is about, and how to make that a romantic comedy, you know, at the same time.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing. This is very impressive. I didn't know this, of course, but now I want to read your book and know what it's all about. Thank you. And yeah, and this inspired you to write the book. It is your story. you
Mhm.
really experienced it, and it's not always fun. You mentioned
Right.
it about dependency and not knowing, being in a cult.
Mhm.
I think when you are inside something in a situation, you
Right.
never know, only when you get out and then you look back from another perspective,
Right.
right? Mhm.
Mm.
Wow,
Yeah.
amazing what you said.
And
And now my next question is, who inspires you? But I don't dare to ask the question, because when you get inspired by someone like a leader or a guru, or yeah, a leader of a cult, for example, then it can be
right.
dangerous. So did you
Right.
have coaches or mentors after being in that situation?
I had um I had 6 very good therapists throughout the years. As it turns out, and I had probably had post-traumatic stress disorder at a very, very early age. My father was, I would probably categorize him now probably as almost bipolar, and that he would be the most loving, fun person ever, and then he would be beating people up, especially the women in our lives. He would beat his girlfriends so poorly, and it got to an age where I realized that I was going to be the next. I was turning into a woman. And when I misbehaved, then he would start trying to hit me. And it was like, oh, this is a cycle. I have got to leave. And so I did. I left when I was very young from my father. But there were many people that helped me get out of the cult, that taught me how to handle that, learned if how to recognize if my plate is already full, and then how to take some of those things off my plate and how to prevent it from tipping. I think that in anybody's brain, you can handle a certain amount of certain types of stress, and it's learning which ones and how often you have to kind of moderate that. And I didn't realize that when I go see like a scary movie that it was filling my plate. I didn't really like scary movies, but as it turned out, Frank would take us to scary movies all the time. There were all these weird things that were like, I didn't realize were kind of degrading my ability to keep my plate steady while he is, doing all this stuff. So, um, the 6 therapists that I had, one kind of after another, what would happen was I'd go to a therapist, I'd be upside down, my plate would be tipped. We would get me right side up. And then after a while, it was like we both kind of come to the conclusion, like, I feel much better. I think I'm going to go back out into life. I didn't need I mean, I'm sure everybody can benefit for full-time therapy. I didn't really have the money to sink into, paying. At the time it was $100 an hour, which was a lot of money back then. Now I'm sure it's triple that. But um and then, of course, ultimately, I'd get triggered again by something, and at that time, I might be living in a different place, like I lived in Mexico City for a while. I'd moved, so I'd find another therapist, and they would give me new skills, new tools to kind of manage this tape, this plate tipping thing. So that was really good. Those people, um, were so helpful to me. I cannot tell you. I mean, it was worth every penny to get those tools and to learn how to use them. I mean, I think there's a lot of cases where you can have a bag full of tools, but you're like, I don't, what do I do with that? I'm just going to go break stuff with it. But they really taught me some things that I could take down the road with me. As far as people that inspire me, I can't really say I have a lot of people that inspire me. I Not like creatively. I think I look at I think of like Byron Katie. I really like Byron Katie, right? She keeps me grounded, but I wouldn't say she inspires me, right? She helps me regulate my nervous system by me constantly looking at a situation and asking myself the 4 questions so that I can keep my plate steady. But that doesn't necessarily inspire me. I think right now what inspires, I think I mentioned to you in our small conversation via text or group, whatever, that I'm not on X, but I'm on TikTok a lot. I have like 21,000 followers on TikTok. People, right? The people, like once the COVID was kind of happening, I was bored just like everybody else. In between the 90 books that I read that year, and I popped onto TikTok, and the things that people can do, that inspires me. Just regular people They might live on farms, they might live in big cities, just average people, and the talent that they have, that lights me up. That really inspires me.
Oh, that's so true what you said about also COVID, and when we were at home and we had to be
Right,
motivated or creative as well
right.
to not be bored. And then people showed up at TikTok, as you say. I love it as well.
Right.
And my journey began on TikTok when I met, for example, what Bob Proctor teaches with Thinking and
Uh-huh.
Results.
Oh,
I
right,
came
right.
across or Napoleon Hill and Think and Grow Rich, and that is where I started 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So what you
Mhm.
said about the plate, I love that analogy with the plate. It seems like to be in balance again, or in
Right.
in balance. Like, I love
Mhm.
that what you said, and to pay attention as well, to become aware.
Mhm.
You mentioned Byron Katie. She's amazing as well. If you don't know the
Mhm.
books, it is Loving What Is, right? The English title,
Right.
Loving What
That's
Is. Yeah,
correct.
one
Yeah.
of her books. And also
Mhm.
she went from, I think, from alcoholic to whatever she
Right.
is now, from an inspirational person. You said she's not inspiring. She causes us to see things in a different perspective, and
Right.
by asking the 4 questions, it's very helpful. So she gives a method we can use when we
Mhm.
feel stuck, or or we don't know what to do to gain our
Right.
balance back.
Mhm.
So I love, and my next question, of course, how do you
Mhm.
inspire other people? You wrote the book. Do you plan to write other books?
Yeah, I do. The my journey with writing the book has been interesting, introspectively interesting. Is that it cost me a lot of money to write that book. I had no idea. I was just, I'm going to write it. I'll put it up on Amazon. That won't cost anything. But I didn't know enough about writing to do that. I had to get a developmental editor to read my manuscript to tell me what was missing. Then I had to dig super deep inside myself because I woke up every day going, "Oh, that would take a writer." I'm not a writer. I can't even hardly spell the word right most of the time correctly. So it was very challenging, but I look at it as, now that it's over, right? Um, that was either an expense or an education, and I feel like if I don't keep writing, then it was kind of an expense. If I keep writing, then all of that I learned, and all the programs I've used, and all the things that I've done, that will then, it's just an education. It's a base so that I can keep going. And I do have other stories. I'm halfway done with not a sequel of this book, but I like to write what I call connected standalones. It will be a standalone story. I won't, gosh, writing a book about yourself is very challenging, right? Because every other person in this book is a real person, and they're going to read it and they're going to want to like their character too,
Yeah.
right? So I think it's different if you're writing a memoir, but when you're writing fiction, it was very hard to find. Yeah, it was challenging. So I had to write a character into the back of this book. She only has one line. She'll be a character in the next book. We'll be in her kind of universe the next time. But I couldn't use any of the people in my book because they're real people, and I'd already, borrowed some of their story, and so I kind of had to do that. But yeah, I would like to. I think my next project though is going to be more smaller books, novellas, and an actual series. And I think I'm going to write it under a pen name. I think that I would like to explore the creative side of anonymity, right? Not worried about, oh, are people going to like Julia Hart's next book? Maybe if I write it and I enjoy it, I can pull it into my universe later, but I would just like to be able to sit down and have fun with the characters, not worry if they're a real person, not worry if they're coming off the page as kind of snarky or unapproachable, or yeah, I just want the characters to be what they want to be, and play with that without the pressure of my next book being good or not, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yes, it makes totally sense in terms of
Mhm.
having fun. The aspect you are not
Yeah,
writing for the outside world, you are doing it for yourself. First, it is
right.
like we are doing this podcast. I always say we are doing it now. We are in the present, and when people listen to this episode, of course, it is their now moment. But for us, it's the past, so to say. And we are doing the next thing. You are writing your book, and I will have another interview, and this is so amazing. So my next
Right.
question is, and you already mentioned the book project, what are some of your other goals? Do you set goals or intentions? What is one of the thing in 2024?
That's an interesting question. I think I'm not sure. I sometimes I say, it's funny when I lived in Mexico City, I would make a list of things that I wanted to accomplish, and then I would mail that list out back to myself, and I would get it like a week later because the mail system there was so slow at that time. This was like 30 years ago. I'm 25 years ago. I'm not sure what it's like now. It might be very much faster, but it always surprised me when I wrote down the things I wanted to get done and I'd get the letter back. I'd be like, oh, wow, I actually got some of these done. I can't do that here in the United States because I would send it out and I get it the next day and be like, oh, I suck. I didn't get anything
Mm.
done. But I wouldn't say I don't feel like I'm the personality type that likes to have everything about me is kind of more emotionally based. Like I have feelings about my feelings, but ask me what I think and I'll get a little lost, if that makes any sense, right?
Yeah.
I'm yeah, I play like that. What I would really like to happen is I have a unit of BK
Mhm.
investment, you know. I would love for this website and the app to do very well. I would love to be able to build a group and a platform for other indie authors to be able to come onto the platform and hang out with me in this space. I'd love to interview them so that the people who read their books could come and look at their interview and see, you know, what inspires them in their process of writing and things like that. Um, I can't do that on TikTok. I can't make a group there, you know. Um, so yeah, I would love for that to happen. I would love to move back to this little city that I had grown up in. Or, you know, I didn't really grow up there. I went to high school there for a couple of years. It only has like 2,000 people. It's very small. But I know when I go there, I feel so good. And I would like to have that feeling that it's weird. It's like an essence of something I can't but I feel my blood pressure drop when I pull into town. I just feel like a better version of myself when I'm there. I would like to move back there. I would like to be able to quit my job, the one that currently is paying my bills, and write full time, write and help other authors full time. I think those
Oh,
are some of the shorter term goals. I want that. I think they're longer term goals that I'd like to happen soon. So I like calling them shorter term goals. Uh, but in the same vein, I also fully believe in kind of letting God also kind of, I don't want to leave, you know, build a structure that's so big that God's like, girl, I can't even get in there to help you get those things done, you know? And I often feel like some of the things that I go through in life um, wouldn't have been as good had I manufactured them all myself, if that makes sense.
yeah.
Like I know that when I was in the cult and I was a dancer, I think that many people would have looked at that as really bad and negative. Even myself, the cult thing, definitely. I always thought that once I figured it out, I was like, oh, that was not a great thing for me. But when I even just like looking at it from if I were to write that book and not have any of that information, have to research what it really felt like to intrinsically wake up every day and feel controlled by another human being, and know what it was like to be a dancer, to do the splits on stage, to walk around in 6-inch heels and be able to dance and have your hair flow and express yourself through music and all of these things. the research I had to do, which brings us back to Byron Katie again, and that whole it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. And so was the cult really a negative thing? I mean, I learned a lot of things. Some of them might have damaged me a little bit in some ways. Some of them fixed things. And yeah, so it's just that whole, I don't know, I'm feeling very ethereally thinking today, but even if it's bad, I always feel like good comes out of it. So part of me is like, doesn't really care what I do in the future because I know it's all going to be for good, you know? So why worry about it? I'm so tired of worrying about trying to get all the pieces in line so that an effect can happen that I think I want. And just kind of letting it go a little bit and going, okay, is this what we're doing today? Let's do it to the best of our ability and see what tomorrow brings. I don't know.
Oh, I absolutely love this. It feels like we are guided, right, and provided always with the right
Right,
people, situations, things, also
right.
the money, the bank account, or we are provided by the divine. I always
Yeah,
say this, so we don't have to worry anymore. We are at the right place.
right.
Yeah,
At the right
this
time.
is.
Yes. As
Mhm.
I have a small story to tell you that back probably 15 years ago, I was in a networking group. I was a photographer at the time, and there was a woman at that networking group. There were lots of us, right? But her heart was in networking. She wanted to help other people, right? So her whole reason for going there was to help other people learn how to network their group. And she got a group of us 5 women together, and she was like, let's all tightly knitly support each other and talk about each other and weave things back to each other. And it made just so much sense. And then one day I had wished her a happy birthday, and she said, hey, why don't you meet me, of we'll have a conversation on, like a web conversation. I was like, okay. And so that person was Tanya Hoffman.
Mm.
Yes,
We
Tanya
have to
Hoffman and I have known each
explain
other for
what the
years.
for the audience. We
Right,
have to explain that she's the co-founder and CEO of Be
right.
Connected, the platform we
Of
are
Be
streaming
Connected.
from now, and that what else? And then that she's so supportive to us all.
Oh, right. I mean, it's like that woman wakes up every day and takes a big, huge pill of how can I help everybody else? You know what I mean? And it's just what a passion that she has for getting people connected and for helping small businesses have leverage and get have a chance to get the audience that they're looking for in order to help fulfill their dreams and to help provide for their families and things. Like she's really amazing. And what luck that I knew this person so well in Austin. We had, I'd moved and she moved, and we never lost touch, but we weren't communicating on a regular basis. So I had no idea, that she was doing all of this. And it was just like, that's one of those divine things. It's like, I didn't put that all together. I wasn't sitting there in the background putting all my eggs in one basket and hoping that maybe I'd run into somebody who had, none of that was even in my consciousness. And then boom, gift of the century,
Yeah, but
Tanya
that,
Hoffman has still been following her passion, despite the people that told her that it wasn't an important passion, that she would never get it done, that the technology wasn't available. Despite all of that nonsense, she still woke up every day and said, there is a way, and I am going to find it. I
yeah,
mean, that's amazing.
she
Yeah,
shows
she's an
us.
incredible person. Yeah.
I love that. That is very inspiring. Thank you so much. And I could talk for hours with you. I have one last question for our podcast
Okay.
interview before we press the button for stopping the recording. Of course, we can talk for hours afterwards. So my last question is, when people reach out to you, and please reach out to Julia, she's amazing. Do you have special offers and services for the Inspired podcast community?
I don't really sell anything to offer a special on it. If you are an author and you're struggling in any way, please reach out. I mean, I've only written one book, but maybe there's a small slice of information that I can give you that will help move you forward. If you have a book that you need reviews and things like that, I have a group on here. It's right now there's about 37 people in it. I work every day towards kind of building that up. I love that group to have a couple hundred people in it that help authors either with an advanced reader copy, reading, and then reviews of the book, or if you want a beta reader, somebody to kind of look it over and tell you where they think the holes were, or if you just have a book out and it's not doing as well as you'd like, and you could use the boost and some reviews, and even perhaps some other authors talking about your book or readers on TikTok, places like that, feel free to reach out. I'd love to help.
Oh, thank you so much. This is generous. Please reach out and we can support each other, of course.
Yeah.
And now is time for your last message to the audience.
Oh gosh, my last just and you find a way to enjoy what's going on with you right now, because what might feel like pain, agony, stress, those things could eventually turn into the very thing that will change your life one day, because you lived through them, or you knew people during that time, or you lived through a situation that could inspire somebody else. So try to find the nugget every day in sometimes what feels like just debris and chaos.
Thank you so much. This whole episode was a nugget. I have to re-listen to it again, of course. Reach out to Julia. She's amazing. Thank you for doing this with me, the interview, saying
Absolutely.
yes.
I enjoyed it so much. Yes, absolutely. And I'm coming to visit. I've always wanted to go to Germany.
Perfect. We will talk about this later and see you
Fabulous.
in the next episode.